Hi, everyone. Dr. Vicky here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center. It is time to look at the second week we're calling it the second week of December. That will be December 10th through December 16th, 2023. So let's get started. There's a bunch of stuff happening this week. So let's not delay. Alrighty. Okay. So first thing that happens Monday, December 11th. Um, Mercury makes a sextile to Venus. Now, Mercury is the planet of communication. Venus is the planet of love. It's the planet associated with what we value, what's important to us, so we can find ourselves having conversations about those things. This is an opportunity to bring in fresh new ideas into your creative process. So that sounds great. Remember that Mercury just moved into Capricorn on the 1st of December. On Tuesday the 12th, that's the 12/12 portal. We have the first thing that happens, the sun makes a waning in conjunct to Uranus. This requires adjustments to be needed. The sun is our sense of who we are. It's also our ego. And Uranus is that sort of out of the box energy. It's an energy of freedom. Uranus will often say no first. No, I don't agree with that, and then create a ruckus. So there could be a little bit of a ruckus. On the same day, we have the new moon at 21 degrees of Sagittarius. The Sabian symbol for that, and we'll look deeply into this moon, is a child and a dog wearing borrowed eyeglasses. The keynote, according to Dane Rudger, the use of imagination and make-believe in anticipating higher stages of development. And the key word here is learning through imitation. Act as if. When I was in practice and just starting out, I would take practice builders, right? Because they don't really teach you. They teach you how to be a good chiropractor and how to, diagnose your patients and how to treat your patients, but they weren't always real good at teaching you how to run a business, which if you were a chiropractor back in the day, you were pretty much on your own. We didn't have hospitals we could affiliate with. So you were sort of thrown out there, out on your own and figuring it out. And so I would take these classes that would help you learn how to build a business. And one of the things that you had to act as if you were already successful, if you expected to be successful. So this is sort of that energy with this new moon. And of course, Sag is a very optimistic sign anyway. So Sagittarius would believe that. And actually it does work. So I'll testify. I'll testify to that. It does work. On Wednesday, the 13th, we have Mercury station retrograde. Yes, Mercury station's retrograde, which kind of makes these Mercury energies that we're feeling before and after the retrograde even a little bit more powerful, because when a planet stations or it starts to change direction, it's pretty much still in the sky. Still as in not moving, not still as in still there. It's always there. Okay. This Mercury retrograde occurs at 9 degrees of Capricorn. The Sabian symbol is an angel carrying a harp, the revelation of the spiritual meaning and purpose of the core of any life situation. And so we've certainly had a number and plenty of life situations that we've been trying to figure out. And perhaps we need some divine intervention, or divine, not intervention necessarily, but like say, hey, I need help. And the angels are there. Or, hey, what should I do? And you listen to that small voice within when you need to. On Saturday, the 16th, we have the sun making a last quarter square to Neptune. Last quarter squares are always squares of reorientation. Squares are always things that create a crisis. In this case, we have a crisis in faith, a crisis in belief, we could call it, a crisis in the way we think about something. The last quarter phase of any two planets coming together deals with a need to uh, let go of the structures in the past that no longer serve, bringing forward a new sense of authority, um, to move in a more collective direction. Sort of the next step in this is the step of the next major aspect would be the sextile, and the sextile brings this sense of raising all boats. So that's what's sort of next. But first, you have to have this crisis point. And if we look at the initial um, seed to this cycle, to this Sun Neptune cycle, it occurred back on the 15th of March at 26 degrees Pisces, watching a very thin moon crescent appearing at sunset. Different people realize that that the time has come to go ahead with their different projects. A keen appreciation of the value of individualized responses to any challenges in life. And the key word here is the fallacy of totalitarianism. Totalitarianism really is the word of one person. The word of one person, you know, everything goes in that direction of the grand leader. And of course, we know from history that never does work. It does indicate a time when dissatisfaction and people are looking for leadership, and sometimes they'll fall into that comfort with somebody telling you what to do because they can't take the disruption and the chaos. Of course, if the person who says they know all the answers is the arbiter of chaos, well, then we have a situation, don't we? And we all are real familiar with that situation, aren't we? Okay, let's go on. Not to make this political, because you know how I love to do that. Let's take a look at each one of these aspects. Okay, first thing we're looking at is the sextile between Venus and Mercury. Here we have Mercury at 9 degrees, Venus at 9. I remember this is the 11th, and 2 days from now, this will be changing direction. So it's pretty much sitting still at this 9th degree. And as I said, sextiles open the lines of communication, And the relationship between Venus and Mercury is an interesting one because there's only a few aspects they can have to each other because they're within, they're the inner planets between the Earth and the Sun. And so there's a range that they can move in, but they never quite make the full circle. And so we can see sextiles with this. These can be sextiles that have to do with waxing sextiles, although they're not officially waxing because they don't go around the whole thing, and waning sextiles. Either way, it's an opportunity for us to communicate what we understand. And really what we understand about ourselves. So this is sort of an internal communication occurring. Now, Mercury is at 9 degrees of Capricorn, an angel carrying a harp. This is the same degree as the degree we talk about with the retrograde because it's just sitting there now. The revelation of spiritual meaning and purpose at the core of any life situation. The key word here is attunement to the rhythm of universal life. Sextile, open the lines of communication with Venus at 9 degrees of Scorpio. Dentist at work, overcoming the negative results of social practices and ego cravings. Keyword, man is compelled by social needs to display inventiveness. And so we can see this along with these the energies of some of the other aspects with the fallacy of totalitarianism, sort of attunement to what's happening, and then also what needs to be fixed. You know, dentists fix things, dentists move things, dentists pull things out, they relieve pain, they can reconstruct your whole bite and all of that. And that all comes to very sort of detailed work, but very very real. Like the dentist deals with bones and teeth, right? Just like the chiropractor deals with bones. It's really real. And so we need to make some foundational structural changes in the way we relate to one another, with the support of the angel, right? With the support of our higher selves, right? With the support of our putting our best self forward in order to fix what's broken when it comes to our communication in relationships. Okay, so the 12th is the 12/12 portal. I will be doing a separate video on that, of course, as I always do on portal days, so, and a reading, card reading. So we'll see what that entails when the time I could do it closer to the portal. I like to do it either on the portal or as close to the portal as I can. That day, the 12/12/2023 vibrates to a 31/4, which is actually a Mars vibration. We can see that that particular vibration in the system I use is associated with the Five of Wands, which is usually it's energy of like a melee. It's creative. It can be partisanship. It can be fighting over stuff, play fighting. Really, not there are no swords here, just clubs. And although you can get a pretty bad, I mean, if you hit them hard enough, I guess you could kill somebody with a club, but it's a lot easier with a sword. You just have to poke them, right? You don't even have to have a lot of strength. But we're dealing with wands, luckily, and wands deal with our ideas, but our creative ideas, right? Our creative ideas. So we're putting our creative ideas out there. Um, the moon in Sagittarius, a child and a dog wearing bars, eyeglasses, the use of imagination and make believe in anticipating the higher stages of development. Learning through imitation. I talked about that, right? Acting as if you already have it. It is a trick, but it is one that works because what it does is it accesses the subconscious and the unconscious, and it creates, and it's through that energy that we can create things in order to live the life that we want. But it's a very self-creative energy. It's not somebody telling us what to do. I'm telling you, you can do it, but I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you what to dream for, or what that has to come from within. Whenever you're dealing with fire signs, whether it be Aries or Leo or Sagittarius, they need to be inspired. And so this is an opportunity to inspire all of us if we choose to take it. The planet Jupiter, which is the planetary ruler of Sagittarius, whenever we have a new moon in a sign, I like to look to see what the planetary ruler is doing. And it is in Taurus. Of course, we know Jupiter's in Taurus, and it's at 7 degrees of Taurus. And this symbol is a symbol that we've been talking about actually as Jupiter's been in these lower degrees of Taurus, so we go over this symbol, right? But we do have in a number of years, I believe it's a Chiron conjunct Saturn, and that's not happening. That's not happening for a number of years, but when it does, it happens at this degree. Okay, so that's a long-term cycle. That's like a 50, 60 something year cycle when that one happens. But it's an important degree. And it says the woman of Samaria at the ancestral well, the meeting of the traditional past and the creative spirit pointing to the future. The key words, a meeting that introduces into the collective situation a totally new factor, which transcends it. A new quality of being is revealed, which renders old patterns obsolete. These themes keep coming up about leaving the old patterns behind, and certainly we have seen where those old patterns have taken us, and it really is truly time to step back from the way we assert ourselves, step back from the way we sort of live our lives that no longer work for us, right? Whether we be an individual or a society or a government, or, or whatever, or whatever. Um, so if we look at this chart, we can see that this new moon, it is close to Mars. Um, it's within 7 degrees. I would call it conjunct. And I highlighted it mainly because the vibrational frequency of that number on the tree of life is connected to the Sephiroth of Mars, Gabora, which is about as you sow, so shall you reap, which is about instant karma. So a lot of the stuff that we are, experiencing and expressing will have that energy of instant karma. We also have a yod with this new moon, and we have the yod between the new moon here at 21 degrees, the south node of the nodes of the moon in Libra. Now, remember, the south node has been the resolution node for Pluto square the nodes for it feels like ever. But even when the nodes were in Taurus and Scorpio, Pluto was squaring them. It actually just started to come off of that energy in November. And we can see that there's no longer, at least in this chart, a square. However, it is, let's see, I would give it a 10-degree orb. So technically it's still squaring the nodes, and technically the south node is the resolution node, renegotiating our renegotiating our I'm sorry, contracts. But we have a yod to Uranus, and Uranus, a yod to Uranus. Let me see if I can find the book that describes that. Hold on one second. Let me find my little book. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm getting this from a book called my favorite, Dynamic of Aspects Analysis by Bill Tierney. This was first published, it looks like, in 1983. I don't know if it's still in print, but if you can get a copy of it, it's good. And mine doesn't have a cover on it anymore because it's such a good book. Plus, it fell, and I think it fell in I don't know, there's coffee or something all over here. All right, so let's take a look at this. So this is, I just want to just read it now. Keep in mind that, this is talking about a person who would have Uranus as the focal point of a yod. So just apply it to this new moon energy that we're talking about. Says Apex Uranus describes an individual who starts out in life feeling very different and markedly out of tune with his early environment. He is often making constant and sometimes erratic adjustments in his attempt to cope with his own uniqueness while learning to integrate with others in a prescribed conventional manner. Since Uranus is a planet of quickened mental energy, this individual's accelerated nervous and intellectual development may be such that he can have problems communicating with others on the average mundane level. Here, he views everything from a unique angle and is seldom able to be molded and structured to conform to even ordinary established procedures, which is very interesting because the South Node in Libra is all about that, right? It's all about ordinary established procedures in a way. Often contrary and rebellious, this individual is to learn to alter his willful mental temperament before he can expect to freely handle the new direction indicated by this yod. His innate detachment from involvement in everyday activity needs to be transformed into an impersonal, yet humanely concerned drive to reform for the betterment of all. So this is part of this new moon energy in Sag. And Sag is really about a philosophy of life. Sag is about understanding. It's about sharing what you know. And of course, not everything that you know is going to be swallowed whole cloth by the usual, like the consensus, we'll say, because Uranus really is an energy that breaks out of the consensus, and in part is there's a part of that Uranian energy that dips their toe into Uranus. so to speak, that well, we shouldn't have said that, but anyway, dips their toe into that rebellious energy. There's a level or a group of people where it's just, if it even has a monicum or a smell of consensus, they're gonna fight it tooth and nail, right? These are the Q people, right? And then you have the more like the third stage individuated, which can take this unique perspective and sort of build a new foundation for a new way of looking at things. And so you might be one of those, but either way, we're all being required really to do it differently because the old ways don't work. Honestly, I mean, if it comes down to that, that's really what it's about. So we have Mercury stationing retrograde at 9 degrees of Capricorn, an angel carrying a harp. We talked about this, attunement to the rhythms of universal life. Mercury retrograde is a time for us to look within and, in a way, attune to the rhythm of universal life, because there's the outside where we look at the outside and see how things are. And then we look within, and how is that translating through our filters? How are we feeling? How are we feeling it in our bones, right? Capricorn. What about our structure is the structure of our mind, the structure of our lives, all of that. What can we build upon, or how have we built things? How have we built our life? And maybe what needs to change. But we're going to have some time now. On the right here, this is the Mercury retrograde. So we have a whole like series, like Mercury retrograde is retrograde 3 times a year. 3 to 4 times a year. And so there's a period of time when it's actually retrograde, but there's a pre and there's a post, and that all sort of matters. This year, most of the Mercury retrogrades have been in Earth, and this one is no different. It starts in Earth, but it does move back into fire. And so it's been very, up to this point, it's been, I think, purely Earth. And so we're dealing with very practical matters. We're back to Earth, but we're also reviewing because Mercury is going to move back into Sag, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it on that week when it happens. But there's also going to be a review of our beliefs connected to this Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, which says, how are you structuring things, right? So if we look here, the pre-shadow, when Mercury reached the degree that it begins its retrograde, no, that it goes back to, like, so Mercury goes from 9 degrees of Capricorn back to 22 degrees of Sag. So when it first is moving forward over that degree of Sag, that occurred on the 26th of November 2023. That vibrated to a 44-8 vibration. That's the Four of Cups. And then it continued to move forward until it made its retrograde station, which is occurring on the 13th. That vibration is a 32-5 vibration. That is the Six of Wands, the victory card. There's also the soul and the shadow of the United States. So we will have some time to evaluate that. And then it goes retrograde until the 2nd of January. At that point, it's reached 23 degrees of Sag, and then it turns direct. And then it actually eventually gets out of its shadow, reaches that 9 degrees of Capricorn as it's moving forward on the 21st of January 2024, which vibrates to the Four of Wands. Incidentally, the day before this, we have the sun move into Aquarius, starting, I believe this is a year of the dragon. And we also have Pluto move into Aquarius on that day. That's a big day, the 20th or the 21st. Does that all happen on the same day? Let me think here. The two things I spoke of happen on the 20th, and then Mercury goes direct on the 21st. So yeah, Mercury's a lot of thinking, Lincoln. All right, Sunday the 16th, we have the last quarter square of Neptune to the Sun. This cycle began back on the 15th of March at 26 degrees of Pisces, watching a very thin moon crescent appearing at sunset. Different people realize that it is time has come to go ahead with their different projects. It's interesting because the sun and Neptune as a combination, we can delude ourselves, or or anybody can be confused and deluded. And the symbol is about the fallacy of totalitarianism. And so there's been a delusional quality that that's going to fix the problem for some, not for everybody. And there are those of us who are like, no, right? But it takes all kinds. Now so that was the initial influence, right? Now we're at the 3/4 mark of the cycle where we experience a crisis in the way we think about a spiritual illumination or a figment of our imagination, because the energy of the sun and Neptune is an illumination of um, the ideal, which can sometimes be completely illusionary or delusional. Um, but this is when this gets tested, right? So did this work out? Kind of idea. The sun is now at 25 degrees of Sag, a chubby boy on a hobby horse, acting as if, right? The anticipatory enjoyment of powers one can only dream of utilizing. And it's in a square, last quarter crisis in consciousness, a reorientation. To 25 degrees of Pisces, the religious organization succeeds in overcoming the corrupting influence of perverted practices and materialized ideals. The power of the soul to intervene in a person's life to induce a necessary catharsis. This is when the soul steps in and says, okay, ego, you've gone as far as you're going to be able to go. Now you have to pay the piper. So you can take this energy whichever way you want, and you can apply it to whomever you want. But remember, we also have to apply it to ourselves. So where have we been deluding ourselves, perhaps, and where do we realize that we have to change the plan, so to speak, in the way we're going to manifest ourselves out into the world. All right. All right. So that's the week. Next week, we'll be looking at the next week. We have Mercury trining Jupiter. We have our first quarter moon. We have an opposition of Venus to Uranus. And we also have the sun ingressing into Capricorn with an inferior conjunction to Mercury, the highlight of the Mercury retrograde cycle, and then the re-entrance of Mercury into Sag. So that's the story. All right, let's stop the share here. Okay, so hopefully you have gotten something out of this. Please like and subscribe if you could. A thumbs up goes a long way. A share goes a long way as well. I appreciate your time for listening to what I have to say. I do have a Patreon page. That I'd be grateful if you would become a patron for as little as $5 a month. I really am. My act as if is that I will be successful in sharing my knowledge and being able to feed myself by doing it. So any help is greatly appreciated. Part of my act as if. And until next week, have yourself a great week. Be careful out there. We're good, but not everybody is. So do what you need to do. And I'll see you again next week. Namaste.